Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TouchTone Tuesday. I am your host and facilitator, Dr. Sheri Dark-Goudeau. It is my pleasure to bring to you here every Tuesday at noon, as the Lord allows, the Word alive. And oh my goodness, this has been a doozy. I'm telling you, if you haven't heard any of this series, you need to go back and get those last two. Absolutely amazing. But before we get started, you know how we do it, even with all our excitement. We go to God in prayer because we know that with Him, we can do all things. Apart from Him, absolutely nothing. So go ahead and hit somebody. Tell them, come on in the room. They want to be here on today. I see you there, my big sister Dina. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, let's go ahead and invoke His presence. Father, we thank you for this day, for the excellency of who you are in the earth. We bless you for just being God all by yourself. And beside you, there is none other. And we thank you for the blessed gift given to us in your Son, Jesus. That is the greatest gift of all, whereby our many sins are pardoned because of his sacrifice at Calvary, because of the blood. And because of that, we have access to the throne of grace, whereby we say, Abba, Father. That is Daddy God. We thank you for just a few moments that you're allowing us time in your presence, God, where we find the fullness of joy. So we believe, God, that we'll be enlightened, enriched, empowered by this word. We know that in this season and every season beyond, we must decrease so that you increase. In Jesus' name, we thank you. Amen. So, hey, thank you so much for joining here. We've got lots to talk about this April. So, April is that month that is just full of awareness and full of enlightening. And of course, we are celebrating National Autism Acceptance Month. Yeah, we enjoyed World Autism Day, April 2nd of this year. We also are bringing awareness to National Child Abuse Prevention Month. We had Blue Day, April 5th of this year, and coming up Sunday, April 28th, 2024, we're going to enjoy National Blue Sunday as we celebrate our children all over this globe. They are indeed a gift from God, and we must treasure them as such. So, please join your church in celebrating National Blue Sunday. And if you need more information on that, you can always go to the National Child Abuse Prevention site and go ahead and get a little bit more information, or to your local CASA as we do. In addition, it is National Minority Health Month. You'll hear a little bit more about that on next week from me. And of course, we're talking about stress awareness in this month. So we'll be sharing a little bit more on that one. But today, you see what I'm doing here. Yep, I got the funds, y'all. Look at this thing right here. You better believe it. We are talking about Financial Literacy Month, and it is going on all over the United States as United States lawmakers passed a resolution several years ago designating April as Financial Literacy Month. And of course, our National Endowment for Financial Education is coming up with their theme this year, which is to inform, inspire, and ignite. Yes, inform, inspire, and ignite. And their job is to bring about awareness, especially with our young people. It's never too young to start them with a financial literacy pathway. And so there's a site called checkyourschool.org. Checkyourschool.org. You can go there and find out if the school that your child or perhaps grandchild attends has those programs, has that information for their teachers as well. And if not, this is your opportunity to be proactive. I had my first savings account at age 7. Yep, $200 gifted to me. Child, I thought I was a billionaire. Was given to me by my godmother. But before they let me spend a dime, they started that savings account for me. Each month, I would get this little paper tab. I wasn't even sure what I was looking at, but they would show me the interest that was accrued from month to month. Thereby, it began my financial literacy, which remains to this day. So, again, it's never too early to start your child on that pathway. So, please join us. Financial literacy this month. There are programs everywhere. There's a sister of mine who does it so well. So, y'all tap into those sites Facebook, IG, they've got them all over the place. Anyway, you know how we do. We're going to go ahead and get started and go to God in prayer. Thank you so much for joining Deacon Signer, as well as my essential worker sister over there, Sister Linda Williams. We love you guys to life, and all of you who are coming in, maybe even later today. But we're going to go to a familiar passage as we continue our series on today, and it is from Numbers 27, verses 1 through 7. I'm reading out of the English Standard Version, but whatever version you have, it is the Word of God, and we honor the Word of God on today. It simply says it like this: Then drew near the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the clans of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. The names of his daughters were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest, before the chiefs and all the congregation at the entrance of the tent of meeting, saying, Our father died in the wilderness. He was not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, the ones that rebelled, but died for his own sin. And he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be taken away from his clan because he had no son? Give to us a possession among our father's brothers. Moses brought their case before the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, The daughters of Zelophehad are right. You shall give them possession of an inheritance among their father's brothers and transfer the inheritance of their father to them. And as we continue our series, Interrupting the Pattern, we want to bring a little bit of light to Financial Literacy Month, at least from a biblical standpoint. And we're going to share this topic by way of heaven, which is simply, I won't mind. I won't mind. You might go ahead and put that in the chat somewhere. I won't mind. Have you ever just stood back and looked at the world as it is, as we're talking about so many things that we're bringing to light, especially at this particular time? And one of those things is we talk about reparations. If we've heard it once, we've heard it many times. But just put your comment in the chat. I won't mind. Thank you, my essential worker there. And so here are those daughters of Zelophehad. They are showing up at a time when women were considered property. They didn't own property. And what they were saying, according to the text, is that I don't want to be looked at something as something that I am without being able to own that I represent. Have you ever stood and looked in the mirror and said, I am that. I am excellence. I am wealth. I am beautiful. I am beloved. And yet you see none of it represented beyond your mirror. Okay, thank you so much for putting those things in the chat there for me. Yeah, some of those things there. So there's something that has to happen beyond the affirmations. There has to be something called a confirmation. Somebody has to come by and confirm or validate that you've already stated that you happen to be. You see, sometimes people want us to portray a thing without having us live out that thing before them. Oh, let me make it plain to you right now. Sometimes there are those who will come to us and say, oh my goodness, you are so brilliant. You are so smart. You are so this, but they never welcome you into the circles of education or into the circles of administration, into the circles of executive wellness or executive financial well-being or executive whatever it is. They don't welcome you into those circles, but it's kind of that pat on the back as they're passing by, just to kind of know they said it, but never welcoming you in. Here, the daughters of Zelophehad are in that situation. They have come into life, into the tribes of Israel, where wealth is going on because they have that kind of God. But these daughters, I'm sure, who have watered livestock, who have fed livestock, who have sat by at their father's table, who have served him all of the days of their lives, are finding out that all of the things that they helped to acquire as far as their father's hands are concerned, they did their servitude as the daughters of Zelophehad, but now they are not welcome to the inheritance which he has left. It belongs to someone else, someone outside of the household who didn't serve him, someone outside of the household who never brought him a hot meal, someone outside of the household who never asked him how he felt, someone outside of the household who never ever served the livestock, never ever fed them, never ever watered them, never ever cared for them, never ever brought in a harvest. Oh, ain't nobody hearing me right now. They never did anything for the household of Zelophehad, but here they are, standing right here, ready to receive everything that he's ever worked for, everything that he's ever acquired. And he's got 5 living daughters who are considered property. They're not considered persons or individuals who are deserving of what their father has worked for. Here they are standing now before Moses, before Eleazar the priest, before the chief, and before the people of God. And you may be finding yourself standing before someone right now who is looking to acquire everything that belongs to you and your family and your lineage. Yeah, these are those daughters right now. I just want to talk to somebody because I think we have somebody on the line. As people of color, we have come through over 400 years of slavery. We have worked to make sure that this land is what it is. Much of it has been built on our backs, especially Washington, D.C. and those areas, and many areas all throughout the states. We were not only people that were brought over as slaves, but we were also people who are indigenous to this country. Many of us have ties back to the Indians, back to, as we call, the native Indians, the people that were here when Columbus arrived, the people who were here when they said that those who were, surveying the land happened to arrive. The people who came over on the Mayflower, they found that people who were Native Americans, as we now call them, were already here. I can trace my lineage all the way back to Sioux Indians. So one half of me is indigenous and the other side of me were brought in on slave ships. That is by ancestry. All of that to say that I am due something because my people work very diligently and still continue to do so to make this country what it is. And yet we are denied certain privileges, yet we are denied certain reparations, yet we are denied things that we are due as far as an inheritance. But I'm going back to the biblical text because I just wanted you to have an understanding now in the 21st century why people stand up before the leaders. They stand up before the nation. They stand up before the chiefs. They stand up before executive administrators and say we are due something because our forefathers worked just as hard as yours did, maybe even harder, to let you see what this country could be. Here is the daughters of Zelophehad showing up in a day where they were not considered even human beings. They were just considered property. And so to even come into that type of setting, they were already taking a risk. They were taking a risk by speaking to the men of that day. They were taking a risk by coming forth as women and making their petition heard. They were taking a risk actually on their very lives, but they showed up anyway because they said we are deserving of what our Father has acquired, and he's left no sons. He did not rebel as some of those did in the day when they were traveling over in the wilderness. We just want you to know who our fathers are. I can go back in my history and tell you that my people were not those people who did not work diligently, who did not work with dedication, who did not work with honor, who did not work with pride. They didn't work on destroying the country, rather they worked on building this country. So there are people of honor. There are people who have worked constructively for this country, and they deserve their just due. And so here the daughters of Zelophehad were saying they weren't in that company. They were in the company who worked honorably before the God that they believed in and the God that they served. My father was one of those. That's what they're saying. And so they begin to separate him. There is an area of distinction, if you will, in their history. Let me go ahead and bring this thing home so that you understand what they're talking about. The text sheds lights then on the traditions of ignorance that sometimes have left us broke. Because when you don't know your history, doubtless you will know what your destiny is. And they were saying to them, we know our history. We know where we've come from. We are not ignorant. We are very intelligent. We know where we have come from. And so we don't deserve to be left broke or broken. Do you know to ask then what you are worth? Do you know then how to inquire what your inheritance should look like? Do you know what really belongs to you, or are you sitting in ignorance? If the answer is yes to any or all of this, then at some point you must confront the status quo. That if you know the answers to these things, then it means you're not ignorant, but you have quite a bit of knowledge and intellect then to what you are due. And if that is so, then it is time to confront the status quo like the daughters of Zelophehad did. The status quo which says that everything must stay the same. The status quo that says that you ought to be just working until you are able to just break even. The status quo that says maybe you just ought to leave it alone. Exactly. And so in the words of Sophia in The Color Purple, she said things gonna be changing around here now. Sophia is home now. What she is saying is that I came into the knowledge of who I really am. I've come into the knowledge then of what I'm really due. I've come into the knowledge then of what my forefathers worked for, what my daddy worked for, and what my pawpaw worked for, and what his pawpaw before him worked for. In fact, I can go back hundreds of years as to what they did for what you are seeing right now. And what I'm telling you is that I ain't leaving empty-handed. I want what's mine. And so the daughters show up and they begin to tap into some things. They stand up then to the status quo. These daughters stood before the council who could make the changes. They went before Moses, who was their leader. They went in and they went in humble. They didn't go in with an attitude, but they did go in with an aptitude that says, we know why we're here. They talked to Azar, they talked to the chiefs, and they talked to the congregations. They talked to those at the tent of meeting. That is, they entered in a certain way. And so they were saying to them, we're not only going to tap into something, but we're going to take ownership of some things. Since we know our history, that is, that Zelophehad, his name means firstborn. He was the firstborn in his family. Not only was he just a firstborn, but he was a firstborn son. Firstborn sons got double portion inheritance. That is, they not only got the birthright, but they also got the blessing of their father. They were due to twice the inheritance in their family because they were a firstborn and they happened to be a son. And so just the mentioning of his name means that they had a double portion on their lives. They had a double inheritance on their life. They were due twice of what the people were thinking of. And so they're letting them know right now that we know who we are and we want to take ownership of the double. Not only do we want to tap into something and take ownership, but we also want to take responsibility. That is, we're showing up not just for the check, not just for a handout, not just for Section 8 housing, and we ain't knocking nobody that's got to be there right now, but there are some folks who are just there occupying space, and they're blocking some folks who really need to have a roof over their head. There are some folks that are still receiving those checks. Yeah, we know that FICA that's on our check stub. Yeah, we've read all of that. They've got the AFDC and all that stuff. They're not really needing it at all, but they just decided that they're due something that they're not entitled to. But there are some folks who need to be in that place. The daughters of Zelophehad was saying, that ain't us. We want to take care of not only the check, but the checks and balances that go with this. We want to take care of our Father's name. We want to bring him honor because he's brought us honor. Give us a possession in our fathers or among our father's brothers. We don't mind paying taxes. We won't be sitting there complaining about it. We're just going to be thankful then that we had an inheritance and not just one part, but we had a double part. So if taxes are a part of that, that's what we're going to do. It's called maintenance. If upkeep on the land is what we have to do, guess what? We're going to take care of the land. We're going to make sure that it's kept up. We're going to make sure that we plant at the proper times. We're going to make sure that we harvest at the right times. We're going to make sure that we have enough for our children and our children's children. And then whatever we have left, we're going to bless somebody with it. That is, we're not going to keep everything because we're going to take responsibility. We're going to add some value to the value that's given to us. That is, it's going to be worth far more in our hands than it would be outside of our hands. We're going to make sure that we add increase to increase. Anything that you give us, when you come back this time next year, we guarantee you it's going to be worth a little bit more. Ain't nobody with me right now. We're going to expand on the impact of expansion is what we're going to do. What they were saying is that it's going to be better because we have it than it would be if you gave it to somebody else. Why? We've got an investment in the land. We've got an investment in the inheritance. We were there working sun up to sundown. We were there with blisters on our hands. We were there in the heat of the day. We were there bringing him cool water in the heat of the day. We were there working it right along with him, shoulder to shoulder. We never got tired and we didn't complain in our daddy's presence. So because it's ours, it's going to be better in our hands because we know the cost to being the boss in this situation. We know how to execute greatness. Let me go ahead and tell you that the daughters of Zelophehad, they interrupted a pattern of sure poverty. How do you and I interrupt the pattern of poverty, the pattern of just enough, the pattern of just breaking even? How do you and I do this? And how do we get the Lord's agreement for it? Well, there are some core principles that the Lord himself will agree to, especially because it's in his word. Let me go ahead and give you 5 of these and we'll be out of your way real quickly. If you begin to look at the text itself, it begins to talk about this man who's a Manassite and what his lineage looked like all the way back to Joseph. And see, when you know your lineage, when you know your history, when you know your ancestral lineup, you'll know what you're capable of. Y'all remember Joseph, that man who became second in command to the Pharaoh himself. He didn't just run the land on his own side, in his own family. He ran the land in foreign affairs as well too. He was so good at it that they had to put him in second command and they had to give him control of everything except the Pharaoh's seat. He was wide open to run it like he needed to because he had the wisdom to do so. And he knew how to separate the land in a time of famine as well as in a time of plenty. See, that was the ancestral lineup. So what the daughters of Zelophehad was telling them is in our DNA. We got this one. And so when you look at it, the right to the inheritance was confirmed by divine direction. The first core that we'll give you is the first daughter's name, Mala. That name means dis-ease. How do you interrupt the pattern of poverty, of not enough, of just enough, and breaking even? Is that dis-ease. Somebody's got to be uncomfortable with being broke. You see, we don't have enough people who become uncomfortable with being broke. We're satisfied now if we get those checks. We're satisfied now if they break us off $1,400 every now and then. We're satisfied if they send us a little bit of something back called a refund from our taxes. We're satisfied with that thing, but these daughters were not satisfied with it. There was some dis-ease when the first daughter's name, the oldest one. See, somebody had gotten uncomfortable with being broke. Somebody had gotten uncomfortable with just getting by. Somebody was uncomfortable with just enough. Somebody was uncomfortable with breaking even. They were looking for a remedy. They were looking for a resolution to empty pockets and, more importantly, to impoverished mindsets. They were saying we got the mindset of wealth, but you haven't given us what we're due to so we can work the plan. So I got a $5 million dream, but you can't give me a 50-cent remedy. You can't give me your spirit of cheap. You see, I've got $1 million mind, and it's going to take millions of dollars to get us where we need to be. I'm going to need more than enough because I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to need more than enough because I'm going to gift somebody. I'm going to need more than enough because I'm going to build something for somebody. I'm going to need more than enough. And so you can't leave me with your $1,400 check and a refund and think I'm going to be satisfied. I've become uncomfortable with being broke and barely breaking even. The next daughter's name was Noah. Her name meant motion. That means somebody's got to move. Somebody's got to get up. That's why they were standing up and not sitting down. See, we've been sitting down too long. We've been sitting down and pressing time instead of pursuing what time can get. Yeah, that's what I said. Sitting down and pressing time instead of pursuing what time can get. Time is defined in such a way that our salaries are based on time. That is, how many hours did you put in? It's time to do the work, to put in the work, to do what we are capable of doing. And these daughters said, we're going to get up and make a move. We've got a plan, but without execution, it's just daydreaming. The reality is we must execute. What stops execution? Fear. That is a threat, a feeling of danger, of pain, of harm. Doubt stops execution. We're always questioning. We're always uncertain. And unbelief stops that. I want to, but I think I can't. Oh, get up from that stuff. Remove fear, remove doubt, remove the unbelief, and get moving. If you fail, at least you failed forward. Get up and go again. The next daughter's name was Hogla. The name meant partridge. I didn't really get it until I studied out what a partridge does. And a partridge is that bird that will sacrifice itself for its children. So somebody's got to sacrifice, and somebody's got to be willing to sacrifice for their future. You got to give to get. You got to sacrifice to serve and succeed. You got to sacrifice if you want to see your future. The next one was Milcah. Milcah's name meant queen. That seemed to set it all up. I was all excited about that. But until I read what a queen really has to do, we watched Queen Elizabeth serve for over 7 decades her country. Everybody saw the jewels, but nobody saw the gems she was dropping. Everybody saw the shine, but nobody saw the shaping that she had to go through behind the doors. Everybody saw the long road, but nobody paid attention to the reality that she lived, because heavy is the head that wears the crown. She paid a cost to wear that crown. She paid a cost to flaunt those jewels. She paid a cost to put that robe on every day. It cost her 7 decades of her life, but nobody paid attention to that. All they paid attention to were the cars she lived in, the palace where she lived. They didn't see the fights with Parliament behind the doors. They didn't see the infidelity she dealt with for years and years and kept the face on to keep her family together. They didn't see any of that stuff. All they saw was the crown. And what he wants us to know is that that crown is heavy. That crown weighs something, and that crown cost. Yes, she was royal inheritance. Yes, there was a royal priesthood in each of us. Yes, the palace is in our blood. And yes, the crown sits in our DNA. It's regal. It means we're a ruler with him, but it also means we have to serve him in the courts. And that's Milcah's name. The last one, as I get out of your way on today. Not only did they have to have somebody get uncomfortable, somebody that had to move, somebody's got to sacrifice, and then somebody's got to be ready for the crown. The last one was Tirzah, meaning favorable. And that means somebody's got to have some favor. Yeah, you know favor ain't fair. It ain't fair, but it's fit for finances. We have to have the favor of the Lord. And here are the 5 core principles for which the Lord himself agrees upon in his word and says, this is how you interrupt the pattern of being broke, impoverished, barely getting by, breaking even, and just enough. Somebody's got to get tired of being broke and tired. And the daughters say, it's enough. We're due. And they showed up, and the Lord agreed with them. Moses brought the case before the Lord, and the Lord said these words: the daughters are right. When you show up with the core principles, when you show up with the five that keeps you alive and your heritage and your destiny, the Lord Himself agrees. He never says no to folks who have gotten uncomfortable with what the devil is trying to hand them. For folks who have gotten up to make a move and refuse to accept the status quo. For folks who are willing to sacrifice and says, I don't mind paying the cost. The folks who are willing to wear the crown and with its shine say, I'll be shaped too. And the folks who walk in the favor of the Lord. It's a sure sign you're getting ready to shift from poverty to prosperity. This has been your financially fit word on interrupting the pattern of being broke. God bless you all on today. Thank you so much for joining. We so appreciate you. Love to play your comments back. Yes, ma'am. Sacrifice to succeed. And my friend, my sister, you have done that and then some. I don't mind paying the cost. Why? I won't mind. I won't mind. Thank you for that. I won't mind. I won't mind. With God, yes, all things are possible. All we have to do is show up. I love it, love it, love it. This is what He's saying to us today, that we have to show up for us. So important. I thank you all so much for being with me here on today with TouchTone Tuesday, where we get in touch with the tone of God's voice. And we are here every Tuesday at noon as the Lord allows. And we have been enjoying this series, Interrupting the Pattern. Next week, you want to join us as we continue more of this series and you hear a little bit about being fit and healthy, just like today when we heard about being fit financially. And it's all in the Word. You guys take care and have an amazing Tuesday. I love you all to life. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. Love y'all.